Yeah, I'm all ready in my Alice in Wonderland themed outfit, and you?
Oh yes, I'm ready in my Frankenweenie outfit.
Oh, you look so awesome.
Oh, so do you.
So, are you ready to do the top 10 Tim Burton costumes?
Of course I am.
Awesome. To the best holiday of the year. One of the best, anyway.
Yes. Hey guys! Oh, sorry. Sorry, I probably freaked you out there. Anyway, happy Halloween everybody, and here we are with another top 10! And this time I thought we'd go a little bit something Halloween related, as we all dress up in costume. So I thought, why not do the top 10 Tim Burton costumes? And so here they are. Who can forget the iconic black and white stripes of Beetlejuice? I think what the costumes do in Beetlejuice is that it's sort of like they're both striking, and then it's like a huge contrast to the Maitlands, you know, because like, you know, they've got like a lovely flowery and like plaid and stuff, and then suddenly like they're in this world, like even when, you know, the Dietzes come along, and obviously Lydia, you know, she's very striking as well, but at the same time it's great because, like, you know, Lydia's such like a grounding character, and then, you know, you've got Catherine O'Hara as Mrs. Dietz, and well, she's pretty eccentric, and then of course Beetlejuice comes in. I think I just love like the eccentric, you know, and it was great because this was like Tim's second film, and like, you know, you just immediately get like just dive right into his imagination, and it was great. It was definitely a sort of, well, just to say, yeah, there's a new great director in town, so watch out, fellas. I think Beetlejuice does that a lot, and like its costumes are such a big thing. And of course there's the black and white stripes. I mean, who can forget that? So had to include it. Okay, so I was rummaging through my mind, looking at films like between Ed Wood and Big Eyes, because they're sort of like this sort of thing. I think the reason why I picked Ed Wood is because I think it was because of the black and white. The black and white just had, you sort of notice like tiny little things with like materials and textures, and then there's the added bonus of, you know, Ed being a transvestite, you know, and what I love about it, and I think I said it in my review, is that they didn't make a big deal out of it. You know, the scene where, you know, Dolores, there we go, when Dolores, like, you know, finishes reading the script, and like she opens the door, and like, you know, Ed's just standing there, and he's just in, you know, dressed up as a woman, you know, and like, you know, it's like, yeah, this is just something I do, and that goes, and so like the costumes are like so not like out there, you know, like, I mean, even Dolores says a line, you know, like, how can you act so casual when you're dressed like that? And you know, I love that they did it, and they didn't make like a huge deal. And I loved how they made, like, the look of it. They sort of made it sort of a very cheap, low-down kind of crew, and, you know, the costumes for, like, his movies were fantastic, and so I think, yeah. And they even do, like, one of my favourite jokes in Ed Wood is where they do that colourblind joke, because it's a black and white. I loved that, and so, it was brilliant. What I particularly liked about Charlie's costumes was that so far it's like one of Tim's most like modern films as far as like time periods or something, but it still seems timeless, and like each one, like each costume just says, like, you know, you look at, you know, you just look at the children, you think, that's definitely Violet, that's definitely Veruca, that's definitely Mike, that's definitely John. So, you know, you get the sense of the character already by just the costumes. I love that the Bucket family, you know, they have a lot of layers and walls, so like, even though it shows, you know, that they're, you know, poor, but it gives them that sort of that warm feeling, and that's also coming from the production design as well. Willy Wonka's costume I thought was brilliant because it was quite sophisticated. It was like the book, but you know, you already got that kind of eccentric mind that he has and that craziness, and I absolutely loved it. I loved that the Oompa Loompas, you know, their costumes, you know, it has a different color scheme that matched with the production design, and so it just felt like it was getting new and, you know, something different through each stage of the factory. So there. Big Fish. Wow, that's the thing with Big Fish. It's just so, it just keeps going and building and building, and the costumes just do a great job of that. You know, the town of Spectre. You know, it all feels like kind of very soft colors. You know, but they're, you know, it sort of hides that hidden darkness that you can't leave the town. Or, you know, the simple like color palette of Ashton that makes Edward really want to leave. Or the circus, sort of bold colors, you know, it's absolutely wonderful. And then when it gets into like the reality part, like of the story, it's sort of, it doesn't feel like, you know, they're like two different movies, and that's what's fantastic. I think what I like is that, you know, the costumes are very simple, but they're beautiful as well. Does that make any sense? It's like, and they certainly fit with the sort of like the time period, with like the small town life, and then the sort of entertainment feel. It just keep like the story and like the production and the you know, it just keeps going and going and going. Love that. Sleepy Hollow, again, this is probably my love of like time periods. Every time I watch like it, even if, I don't know, like there are some films that I've watched that I would just watch just to see the costumes from the time period. Obviously I love Sleepy Hollow a lot more, you know, because it's like, you know, a lot more than the costumes, but they just sort of, I think what I liked about them is that they weren't like too striking. And it sort of fitted with that atmosphere. It sort of gave that like Hammer horror feel. So if you love Hammer horror films, definitely Sleepy Hollow. I said that in my review. And they certainly stuck to like the period. I particularly love Katrina Van Tassel's. You know, it's very sort of kind of innocent but bold at the same time. Shows kind of her character. So it's kind of funny, like when she's doing like her sort of witchcraft and like, you know, she's doing it in these very sort of lighter colours than like the rest of the townsfolk, and that was brilliant. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. It just captured that atmosphere again, and I think, you know, with a story like Sleepy Hollow, you just need that. Well, how can I mention Tim Burton costumes without mentioning Batman? I mean, the bat suits are fantastic. I still think it's probably one of the best bat suits I've seen, because I don't know, I think it's the symbol that does it for me, because it just, you know, and I love in the Batcave where, like, you know, he's completely in the shadows, but you can, like, still see his eyes. I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. And then you have that contrast of, like, Vicky Vale in, like, blue or white, you know, and then suddenly you've got the Joker in, like, you know, the purple, like, he's a bright clown, you know, and that's, you know, they take advantage of that. And then again in Batman Returns, you know, the idea of Catwoman with the stitches and, like, you know, it's like she's a resurrected monster. Well, she kind of is. She is, and so, and then, like, I love that the cat suit, it just keeps, like, it's getting more and more damaged as the film progresses, much like the character. And the Penguin as well, it's sort of like, it's a kind of like both sophisticated, but it's both like monstrous as well. I love that. I'm going to put this pumpkin down because it's driving me nuts right now. So, it showed sort of like the progression of like these characters, and that's, you know, I mean, that's wonderful. And I love it when costumes do that, and this Batman and Batman Returns certainly did that. Again, another period piece. Again, I think what I love and this kind of goes for Sleepy Hollow as well, is that, you know, the costumes, they do sort of fit with the time period, but they sort of make them kind of fictional and fantasy-like, and Sweeney Todd kind of does that, along with the production design. You know, so for the fact that, and, you know, it kind of goes, you sort of see a progression as well, like, for instance, like with Mrs. Lovett, you know, when you first see her, like, you know, her costumes are sort of kind of like worn down, you know, they're not that, you know, great, but like as time goes on and like the business starts doing well and more pies are being sold, you know, she starts to wear a bit more lighter, sort of lighter, a bit more nicer outfits when you think about it. It's like, you know, stuff with flowers, stuff with stripes, and then obviously like in the By the Sea number, the fact that everything's just so colourful, it's like, well, it's her fantasy, you know. And again, it just says so much about the characters as well. You know, the scruffiness of like the judge because he's not like keeping himself clean, or like, you know, the leather on the beetle, thinking, you know, he's very attractive, and like sort of the costume they gave Anthony sort of made him look sort of young and naive, and then Joanna, the dresses made her very like sweet and innocent, you know, and like, yeah, it's just and Pirelli, well. There's no doubt about what his costume's saying about his character, so it just shows a lot, and it shows a bit of progression over time, and I like that, and it sort of gave that fictional feel, but yes, yeah, so for instance, again with Mrs. Lovett's costumes, like, you know, it's sort of fictional, but they sort of like said, well, laces were very popular in Victorian times, let's give her some laces, and so that's what they did, and that's wonderful. So it gave character, and it gave a progression through it, so much like Batman pretty much. I already said this. I love the costumes of Dark Shadows. Again, it just sort of really captured like the 70s, the sort of striking colours, you know, and I think what I loved about it is that not every character that was in the 70s was like, you know, really like 70s. So for instance, like Carolyn's probably like the most. Dr. Hoffman, on the other hand, she's like trying to wear 70s outfits, but she's clearly not looking great in them. I love that. Roger pretty much looks like someone from some of the 70s. Elizabeth kind of looks behind the times. Vicky kind of looks behind the times, but you sort of figure that out because of what happened to her. And you know, David just wears very simple stuff, which is like the character. You know, he doesn't really think about that. Barnabas, I love his costumes because they're just so, like, you know, they're very elegant, but when you put them in the 70s, it's like so over the top, much like his makeup. It's very theatrical. Barnabas is very theatrical, and the costume and makeup really helped that. I love the costumes that they did for The Happening. Angelique, man, Eva Green, she can make a business suit look good. I don't know how she does it. She's just... and I love, like, much kinder, and you know, like her costume gets more and more damaged as, you know, the battle keeps going over, and you know, sometimes, you know, it's wonderful. It's great. I wish I could look that good. I wish I could, but oh well. I think again, it's just that 70s feeling. Maybe it's because I love the 70s. I wish I could have spent one day in the 70s. That would be awesome. I think what I love about Edward Scissorhands is, like, you know, when I first see him and, like, you know, and then suddenly, like, he's put into, like, the suburban life, you know, you sort of get that, you know, the fact that, you know, he's pretty much covered. Like, the only thing you can see is his head. You kind of get that kind of feeling that, yeah, he is a creation. He's not exactly human, and so you get that vibe, and, like, and it's such a contrast with him and, like, the neighborhood. Even if he's, like, wearing, like, you know, Bill's old clothes, you know, he still sort of seems out of place. You know, the neighbors, they sort of kind of, they looked as though they kind of, like, all, like, blend together and sort of make, like, this sort of rainbow palette, you know, it's wonderful, and it's sort of like a washed out palette color. I love pastel color. I love Kim's costumes. I absolutely love the white dress she wears. I'm in love with that dress. If I could have it, I would buy it. I think, you know, again, it's that sort of contrast between her and Edward, you know, the fact that he's in black, she's in white, and so it's sort of, you could say it's like, shows the future, like what's gonna happen between the two of them, but like, so when you get that image of like, you know, him holding her, it's like, you know, fantastic. Or like when they're peeping out the window, and the added bonus of like, you know, the blood on her dress, I love that, you know, it's very sort of like, so even though like it's set in like suburban life, and this goes with like, you know, the entire pastel colors as well on the houses, it gives that sort of romanticized feel, that fairy tale feeling. It's not a period piece, it's not, you know, it's pure fairy tale, and that's what Scissorhands does. Of course, I do remember like the first time I saw Alice. Now this was the first movie that I saw in cinemas when I became a Tim Burton fan, so I like recently watched Scissorhands. I found out that he was doing Alice in Wonderland. I was super excited, and like I just remember thinking, oh my god, like costumes are amazing, and like Colleen Atwood, she won a freaking Oscar for that, and I was like, that doesn't shock me at all. I think what does it for me is just the amount of detail. You know, the amount of hearts that are on the Red Queen's dress, the fact that, you know, the Hatter has like all his sort of things that Hatter does, like the needles in the hat, or like, you know, ribbons and thread on him, and it's sort of like tatting down as well, because like he's been sitting at that tea party for years waiting for Alice, and like the White Queen, very, very white and striking, and it's like, you know, she just sort of looks like a little princess, and so it's you know, and then, you know, it just sort of adds to that. It's sort of like a graceful kind of thing. It sort of adds to like the madness of her character. I love that, and I love the fact that this was one of the few, if not the only, Alice in Wonderland where Alice's clothes don't shrink with her or grow with her. It's kind of like, yeah, that would probably have, like, and so there's a lot of options to do with like the fabrics, and so she wears like her undergarment as a dress and like wraps it around, and the Hatter makes her another one. I love that one. And then when she grows bigger, like, you know, they take all the curtain dresses and stuff, and it does look like something that you know, they just tatted around her and stuff, and it was brilliant. So I noticed a lot more like of the fabric, just the sheer detail of the costumes for Alice in Wonderland. I think that's what makes it the #1 spot to me. I mean, you know, you can have like different opinions, but and I'm not just saying it's #1 because she won an Oscar for it. No, even if she didn't win an Oscar, I'd probably still put it as #1 because it's just, I mean, it's just amazing. I think it's just the amount of detail, and I think that's what Colleen Atwood does best, is like you see the amount of detail, and it just adds to the tone and the atmosphere, and she certainly does that in Tim's films. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope to see you soon. Happy Halloween, everybody!